Well, Anna, it looks like it's you and I against the world here.
We can handle it.
Is what I was afraid of.
So I know Mike Hirschberg is going to be running late, but he is planning on joining unless you've heard something else more recently than 4 hours ago.
No, that's great.
Um,
I'm pretty sure James Lehman said he was going to come. I don't know. Yeah, he told me this morning he was going to make it. So.
Yep. And Julia confirmed on the thread with Heather. So okay. I think we're going to have more than this.
I talk about Agility Prime for hours at a time every day. So what's another one?
Well, and I'm sure, actually, just as a backup, let me pull up. I know I have a slide deck that I could use if it came to it.
Okay. How things been going for you? Having a good year with Cami? Interesting as always.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting as always, right? May you live in interesting times. No, but it's been good. We've had a lot of interest from different municipalities. We did a beta run of what we're calling the Urban Air Policy Collaborative the last 6 months, and it went really well. So we're launching another cohort for that starting in January, and continuing to publish resource materials and all of that.
Yeah,
so
sure.
yeah.
How's your husband going with Jump? I think he got
Good.
a few SCTRs, right?
Yeah, he got a couple, I think. Yeah, he's happy. He's working away. He's in his element.
Yeah, good for him.
So yeah,
I wish I was getting to work away in my element.
I know, right? I'm a little jealous too. Like I love all the things that I'm involved in, but man, he is a born entrepreneur and a born aircraft designer, and he just eats it up. So
yeah, I wish I got to do more engineering and less panels. Nothing against you, Anna, but here we are.
Sorry.
We go live at 3:05, is that right?
That's what they said. People better hurry.
I could start with playing the Agility Prime video. It'll give us like 5 minutes if no one shows up.
Do that. I mean, the other thing that we could do is like I could so I have a couple of slides that would probably be like highly relevant to the conversation of like how do you define advanced air mobility, and like what are the regions of operation, what are the zones of operation, or types of operation, regions of operation, and then like the integration concept with local transportation, like some of the more unique things for local and state regs, pieces of public acceptance, public benefit, that kind of stuff, like the sort of standard Cami deck, like if we end up in a pinch.
For sure. Yes. My questions are, I mean, most of mine were more for the like LA and North Dakota, kind of like what they've been doing so far this year to prepare for ORBs, kind of challenges they see, what they're expecting impacts of ORBs in their community, what they're really looking forward to in 2021, like super broad, whatever they want to say questions.
Yeah.
Oh, here's Heather. She's in the lobby.
Hey guys.
Hey Heather, how's it going?
Good, how are you? Sorry, I was on the pre-meeting link. Apologies.
Was there anyone else over there with you?
No, actually, it didn't even start. It just had me kind of on a holding pattern.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully, if some other folks show up, it might just be the three of us.
I'm gonna send.
Mike said he was gonna be rolling in like right at the beginning, or maybe a couple minutes late.
Yeah, I was thinking I could start with the Agility Prime video that we start all the webinars with. It gives us like a 5-minute buffer.
Perfect.
So we can give people a little bit extra time to get in.
Perfect.
Hey, Heather, the other Heather, could you let me share my screen?
Doing that now?
You had their R's also. That's funny.
You should
Heather, you should probably let Anna share as well. I think she had a few slides we might.
Yeah, you should all be able to now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Is the sound coming through all right?
Mm-hmm. And Anna, do you have a couple slides that we should have you do at the beginning? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, especially if we're kind of trying to buy time for
the whole
folks to
thing,
come in.
Oh, here's James Lehman. Heather R, if you could add him as well.
Perfect.
Hey, good afternoon, James. How's it going today?
It's going great. Sorry, I had 3 minutes, but I'm early.
Perfect land time.
No worries.
Right. Well, nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you. Where are you physically right now?
Well, physically I'm on the Gulf Coast, but I technically reside in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got everybody.
Yeah, I'm in Fargo though. Fargo's fine.
Where are you from? You say Fargo in a way that makes me think you've been there for a while.
Originally, I grew up in New Jersey, but I've been in Fargo, or at least Minnesota, North Dakota, for almost a decade. Okay. If I were originally from there, like my wife, they'd say Fargo.
Fargo.
So
that was well done.
That was well done. That's awesome.
Hey, Julia, Mike, how's it going today?
Hey, Sterling, going okay? How are you? Hey, everybody. Good to see you all.
Doing well, not stressed at all. It's fine.
Okay, just full disclosure, 2 minutes ago, it was just Anna and Sterling. We all just showed up. So it's not like I've been here the whole time either.
It's good. Everyone's here. We're going to have a great panel.
Great.
How are things out in LA? Sunny? Lockdown?
You know, it's Sterling. We're all just on the beach, taking our calls from there. I'm just kidding.
You know, I went
We're
out
obviously all in our homes on severe lockdown.
I went out there for October and I went surfing, so I don't blame you.
That sounds pretty nice. You any good?
No.
Me neither.
Make effort with effort. It's fine. So Heather, I know you have some questions. I have some as well from the Agility Prime side, kind of maybe more technical or whatnot. We can just bounce back and forth, play it by ear.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome.
Hey, Mike, how's it going today?
All right. There we go. Just looking for the best place for this light. Looks like I have gray hair. Too much. I'm actually in my daughter's room today. Every time I do one of these things, I'm in some other part of the house or whatever.
You have a fancy background, so we can't tell.
I know. First time using a virtual background.
My computer's too old. It won't support it.
Yeah, that's how it normally is. But
Come on, Heather, all those investor friends and they can't get you a real laptop.
It's my own problem. I prefer technology that my father-in-law uses. So I have a Lenovo ThinkPad from like 5 years ago. No joke.
wow.
That, and I had to like rip my BlackBerry out of my hand. They did it finally, but
Classic.
I just prefer all that.
Hey,
You're
for
right,
the
but
other,
you're not wrong. I need to up my game.
for the other Heather, will you tell us when we go live or?
I am waiting to find out.
Okay. Colonel Diller's probably still talking. He likes to go long.
Hi, Anna. Long time no see.
Hey.
Oh, I wasn't on. I didn't have my camera on yesterday, but or whenever that Gamma meeting.
You liked all the trouble I caused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good trouble.
Hopefully.
So Heather, are you going to do the intros for everyone? Do you have their bios or?
I don't. We'd actually coordinated that they're gonna just do a quick introduction of themselves.
Perfect. That's the way I like to roll as well.
So much better than me sitting here reading a piece of paper. And I'm actually, just so you guys, I'm having Anna go first. I'll have James go second. I'll have Julia go third. And then I let Mike go last because we didn't know if he was going to be here in time. And then Anna, I'll kick it over to you if you want to start with a couple of your slides, if that's cool.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
So what does the audience look like right now? How big is
You
the
just introduced your panel.
kidding?
We have a grand total of 7 people watching us.
Yeah, he just introduced it. He's about to let people in.
That 7 people is us, right?
7 plus us.
So I'd say start at 12:10 Pacific, so 3 minutes.
Sweet. Where's everybody else from?
I'm in the DC area.
Awesome.
I'm from LA, but I'm in Palo Alto, California.
Very nice.
Grew up in the Midwest and have spent my entire adult life trying to stay as far away from it as possible. I'm in the San Francisco area now. Was in the Boston area before that.
Where in the Bay Area?
Petaluma.
Okay. Just across.
Where in the Midwest there, Anna?
St. Louis.
So like the Midwest. We're
Yeah.
kind of a hybrid, I think. Midwest, West, Upper Great Plains. It's weird.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah.
A little bit colder.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, this year we had no snow. And by this time of year, we haven't even dropped below 0 yet. And usually it's mid-November when we get our first sub-zero temp. So it's
in the Air Force,
It's
where
odd.
can be translated over to the FAA. Again, the FAA
Oh.
that standard certification. We in the Air Force for this.
That's my boss, folks.
He texted me at like midnight last week and was like, "Oh, I forgot to add you to the panel. I forgot to add you somewhere in the schedule." I'm like, can you talk on this panel? It's like, yeah, send me in, coach, whatever you need.
He did the same thing to me, Mike. I'm like, all right, yes, sir, whatever, sir.
Don't worry. He told me I was going to be on it 5 minutes ago. So
Send me a link, sir.
Okay, you guys can go.
are we live then, Heather?
Yeah.
All right, over to you, other Heather.
Thank you. Hi, team. Heather Richmond here from Palo Alto, California. One of the BM&T team and the founder of the Defense Investor Network. We're going to jump right in to talk about ORBs in the community today. We've got 4 experts with different levels of expertise in different areas, and we're going to just again, jump right in. They're going to each introduce themselves, so you don't have to hear me talk for the next few minutes. We'll start first, please, with Ms. Anna Dietrich.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, I'm Anna Marachek-Dietrich. I got into the space of fun, cool things that fly as the founding chief operating officer for Terrafugia back in the mid-2000s. Stayed in that role for a better part of a decade and got a lot of great experience with this certification process for unique aircraft, as well as launching one of the first high-profile eVTOL aircraft for personal use concepts there. Decided in 2014 to step back from that chief operating officer role and focus on the pieces that I was finding the most interesting out of all of that, which was how do you take the existing certification landscape, the existing regulatory structure, and adapt it to something that really hadn't been contemplated before. So I've spent the time since doing certification and government relations, regulatory affairs consulting for eVTOL and autonomous aircraft, not necessarily both together. And a couple of years ago recognized that there was a need to support this industry, not just at the federal level, but at the local and state level, and to bring those decision makers really into the conversation in a meaningful way, and to give them the information that they needed to feel educated and empowered on how to best incorporate all of this new technology into our communities and into our existing transportation landscapes. So Yolanka Wolf and I co-founded the Community Air Mobility Initiative about 18 months ago, and have been serving state and local decision makers in that capacity ever since.
Terrific. I'm thrilled you're here. Where are you joining us from?
Oh, I'm in Petaluma, California, North Bay.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. James, you're up. Where are you from?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Lamont. I call sunny Fargo, North Dakota home. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Strategy for the state, and I have 9 portfolios, 2 of which touch the unmanned system space. One of them would be commercialization of intellectual property and tech transfer from our university systems, as well as kind of oversight over the broad strategy for unmanned systems development. That includes the Northern Plains Test Site, Grand Sky, which is a co-located private sector entity with Grand Forks Air Force Base, as well as the recent deployment of the Vantis network, which you would know is beyond visual line of sight. Overall, over the last several, about 18 months, we've spent approximately $30 million on that rollout, plus the work we've done at Grand Sky and within the Northern Plains Test Site Authority to ensure that we're able to support the national security mission, but as importantly, commercialize new concepts within the unmanned system space, working closely with NASA and other federal institutions in the private sector on developing new regulatory requirements and standards. And simultaneous to that, growing sort of the entrepreneurial community and innovation community associated with either research and development within the university system, or as it ties to the investments we've just mentioned. My boss, Governor Burgum, just briefed the legislature last week on another $30 million request to continue the momentum associated with the work we're doing within the unmanned system space. And prior to this role, I was a small town city administrator / PhD student. And then prior to that, I was fortunate to serve in the intelligence community for 12 years, both as a uniformed member and as a government civilian working for either DoD or the State Department. So lots of unique opportunities, and I'm glad to be here to talk about what we're doing to support ORBs in the air mobility space.
Terrific, James. Thanks for being here. Julia, where are you coming in from?
Hello, everybody. Well, I am coming in from sunny Los Angeles, actually sunny Los Angeles, I should say. And I am Julia Thane DeMordaunt. I lead new mobility and goods movement policy for Mayor Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles. I'm the first person to sit in this role. So when I was hired to do this, it was about meeting the needs of the current moment and now the current crisis, which obviously are many, but also about planning for the future and making sure that we build out a multimodal transportation network that's going to work for Angelenos long term. My work over the past couple of years has been balanced both in what we need immediately and responding to what the private sector has been throwing at us, and also about looking to co-create that future of transportation, both with the communities, the diverse communities that are in LA, and with the many companies that want to do things that are cool and different in LA. So that means that I lead our policy on urban air mobility and drones, and actually lead an 8-city agency working group on that topic. I work on automated vehicles, personal delivery devices like these sidewalk automated delivery robots you may be seeing across the country, scooters, universal basic mobility, and more. And most recently, just last year, we launched an initiative called Urban Movement Labs, which has now become its own nonprofit that is a transportation solutions accelerator for doing exactly the type of future-looking work we're talking about. I'll just say as a last little bit about myself, I was hired for this job because my background's in the private sector. So I worked for Siemens Smart Cities team for 5.5 years in London, DC, and then finally in LA, and really focused on the software, the product side of things. So intimately are aware with the business models, and then take that lens to my policy work now. Happy to be here.
No, we're thrilled to have you here. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but who are some of the other cities that are involved in this working group?
Many. So actually some international cities as well, including Toulouse in France, Paris. And then we have some sister cities in China who are doing the work as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. Mike, last but not least, where are you sitting?
Right now I'm in an undisclosed location in the DC area, which is my daughter's bedroom. Hey, first of all, I'd just like to say, get really a hat tip to Agility Prime for AFWERX for leading this effort. It's anything we can do to move the ball forward is just fantastic, and really salute all of my fellow panelists for the work they've been doing for years to realize this incredible vision. When I first, got bitten by the eVTOL bug was in 2013, talking to Mark Moore at NASA. People like Eric Allison and Professor Alon Crow at, well, I guess it's now kind of Kitty Hawk, but Z Aero, and some of the other, Joe Ben Beavert from Joby, some of the real visionaries. And, when I first try to explain it to people, it's like, yeah, it's not flying cars, or, we like the word eVTOL because we're a technology organization. This is really coming, and I'm not gonna be able to convince you that it'll come, because you just you can't comprehend it because it's so out there, but it really is coming. And so we started in that 2013 2014 timeframe, bringing together the community, trying to look at all the different challenges. So we were founded in 1943 as the American Helicopter Society. We're a nonprofit charitable educational society that brings people together to work on challenges for electric VTOL and for vertical flight. And 2013 timeframe, we really saw this eVTOL technology and all the different things beyond technology really converging together for, again, what we see as this electric VTOL revolution. And there's 1,000 reasons why we won't be able to get there, and so we are trying to work with all these other communities to look for solutions to all those problems. One of our big five is community acceptance or public acceptance, and so I'm very pleased to be on this panel and talk about our perspective on the community.
Perfect, Mike. Thank you for being here so much, and I believe you all know Sterling. So I really just quickly, Anna wanted to share just a slide or two with some background, and then we'll get into some questions.
Sure. Yeah, I thought it might just be helpful to share a little bit of what, just a couple of slides out of a CAMI deck that just kind of grounds us in terms of what we're talking about, because the space is so broad and there's so many different acronyms and terms that get used. So when CAMI talks about advanced air mobility, this is what we talk about. We talk about a system of transportation that spans a wide geographic area and a wide number of types of operation. We typically don't include small unmanned aircraft in our conversations, though they are key to keep in mind from an interoperability and airspace sharing perspective. But we look at everything from the dense urban environment all the way out to rural access, and everything from sort of the on-demand air taxi that gets a lot of airtime to emergency services, airport shuttles, even sort of a flying bus route, the air metro model. So we think there's a lot of potential to use these aircraft in very creative ways. And it's not just eVTOL aircraft, it's new types of aircraft, new types of electrification across a variety of different aircraft architectures. So CAMI talks about this pretty broadly, and I think there's different niches within this landscape that different communities will find different levels of value. So that's kind of one piece of just like kind of putting the framework out there without belaboring it too much. And then the other piece of framework that I thought it would be helpful to kind of kick us off around is what does it take to get public acceptance? And this is something that everybody has a different answer to. And you know, we've done some work with LA and with Julia, and I'm really looking forward to getting more of her perspective and to getting James's as well. But generally, we think of it as having sort of these 4 facets. So trust, public benefit, integration, and limiting the adverse impacts of the technology on the communities. So you can see some of the different facets of each of those pieces here. We're going to talk about these different pieces as we go forward, just kind of informally in our conversation. But really just wanted to highlight that without the public benefit, without the technology bringing a real value to the communities in which it's being deployed, none of these other things really matter. So we have to have the foundations of trust with aircraft certification and operations and safety. That's obviously foundational and primary. But then beyond that, to do this well, it has to have a demonstrable value. It has to be well integrated with the things that we're already doing to get from place to place. And we have to be transparent about the fact that there will be some level of adverse impact, whether it be noise or visual clutter or environmental impact through additional electrical capacity or whatever it may be, and to be proactive in mitigating those instead of trying to pretend they don't exist. So I just kind of kick that out there as a little bit of a fire starter, and we'll let the conversation kind of go where it will from there. So thanks for the opportunity to do that.
Great, Anna, thank you so much. So we're just gonna hit the big questions right from the beginning. We have very limited time, unfortunately. So the successful implementation of ORBs will hinge on air mobility being responsibly embraced by local communities, cities, states, and the general public. Communities have an outsized say in the introduction and operation of ORBs that will carry goods and passengers over top of people. Really, what are the key issues that have to be solved or tackled to ensure that these communities can welcome and embrace these new mobility solutions? Part 1. Part 2, just to kind of file away for a second. Also, is there a contribution that can be made by DoD to further community interest, say more rigorous certification processes or the like? But we'll start with the first one. Really, what are the key issues that have to be solved or tackled? What keeps you guys up at night?
I can jump in quick at a very high level, coming from a state level buy-in perspective. North Dakota, where we are, it's a very conservative state. So naturally people think drones, surveillance, libertarianism, and a number of things. And what we have found, however, is with respect to building that confidence, demonstrating that public benefit, utilizing our National Guard effectively. So DoD-like, but not quite DoD, I guess. Where they do a number of surveillance operations as well as public safety missions utilizing unmanned systems capacity, whether that be for flood efforts, search and rescue following tornadic activity, or even augmenting accident investigations for the state patrol or the DOT. So we have found that the utilization of this technology for public benefit has enabled us to gain much faster buy-in from the public, both in our urban communities as well as in areas that aren't quite as populated.
Before you pass it off, just on a scale of 1 to 100, gut feeling, level of acceptance within your state.
High, 70, and I'll tell you why. The legislature got behind a major investment, and they're going to get behind doubling down on an investment with respect to expanding it into additional parts of the state, meaning beyond visual line of sight infrastructure. So I would say it's about 70.
Amazing. Julia, can I throw it to you?
Absolutely. I was actually just going to say something a little bit different than what James just shared, which is not a lot of people know what urban air mobility is or advanced air mobility is. Whether you're talking about the government below federal level, the state, MPO, county, city levels, or for that matter, the general public. And even though the public is just one word, that's not just one voice. So we're definitely thinking about how we not only look at community as government and understanding how we build capacity within government to be able to even understand something that isn't deployed yet and that we haven't been able to see, we haven't been able to hear, we don't know what it's going to look like at scale. In addition to then, how do we communicate that in very simple terms that folks are going to understand and they're going to feel and know what the impacts are going to be on the ground, or for that matter, in the air. So I think one thing that I didn't see on Anna's slides, although that is an amazing, encapsulation of just the way that we're thinking about UAM being beneficial or not to Angelenos, is the element of workforce development, the element of jobs and economic development. I think especially on the early end of AAM and UAM, the reason that cities are caring about this is because it's additional jobs. It's an additional way for us to be able to build up our local economies, and for that matter, to make the investments we need to make in infrastructure right now, knowing that it's going to look a little bit different on the electricity grid, on everything else in the next 5 or 10 years.
And again, same kind of question, just gut feeling from where you said, very different, layout than where James is from. Kind of where would you put it on 1 to 100 of kind of level of acceptance?
We don't know yet. And I think that's, again, to my point of, folks don't know enough about what these are beyond drones used for emergencies or construction or for just filming. And so this nuance of conversation needs to happen in order to even get that gut reaction.
Okay, thank you. Anna.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting the workforce development aspect of it. It's kind of buried in the economic opportunities bullet point, but it's really central, especially as we look at ways to recover and move past our current situation here. So it's incredibly varied. And I think you saw just some of that between James and Julia's comments. Different locations are at different levels of maturity in terms of thinking about this and funding it. Different communities are at different levels of comfort. And I think that that's an area where, kind of to skip ahead a little bit to your second question, more on the, what can we do today and what can DoD be doing today? I get a little squirmy at the idea of more rigorous certification, because I think the certification processes that we have today that are in use in the aviation industry today are already quite rigorous and are already quite good and robust. But I think where we could really get a benefit is by demonstration. And by seeing these aircraft in action. And everybody loves going to the air show and seeing the fighter jet fly over, right? So that sort of enthusiasm for aviation and the public connection that the military has been able to get to aviation through that sort of outreach, I think could be incredibly powerful here, and could be something that we do in advance of sort of broad commercial certification and deployment of these aircraft. So that's where I would see that value. But otherwise, I just really, I've seen other municipalities echo the same concerns that were shared, and there's this huge spectrum. And it's really why we're taking, as Cami, the approach of municipality or state by state, working with these jurisdictions to help them understand what they need to understand, figure out where their gaps in knowledge are, fill that, and then support their sort of exploratory process going forward from there. So yeah, it's great to hear that 70.
That's great. And Mike, what are your thoughts? Some key issues.
Yeah, so as I had mentioned, we were originally founded as the American Helicopter Society, so we've got 77 years of supporting the existing the primary means of vertical flight, and there is urban air mobility and air taxis available with helicopters, but they're really too loud for ubiquitous operation in cities. And Los Angeles and New York have really fought back on helicopter flights, non-essential helicopter flights. So, in order for us to reach this vision of actually using eVTOL aircraft for urban air mobility or advanced air mobility, they really have to be so much quieter than helicopters. And people talk about 100 times quieter or 100th as loud as a helicopter, things like that. And it's also a different frequency of noise. It's not that impulsive whop whop noise. So the Vertical Flight Society represents the people who are developing the technology, developing the aircraft, and that's people in industry, academia, and government, everybody who's an innovator who's trying to move the ball forward. And we all recognize that if these aircraft aren't so quiet that you can't hear them above the ambient noise of the city and things like that, that they're going to really have a hard time gaining that public acceptance. So we absolutely see quiet, safe, all the benefits they'll bring to a community as the keys to public acceptance.
For sure, Mike, just to hop in there on the end of that question, I really like what Julia was saying about how so many people aren't aware of UAM and the changes that flying orbs might bring. You know, as a DoD representative, everyone we go to often tells us we didn't even know this was a thing. And after they speak with us, they're like, yeah, this is great. Why aren't we already doing this? And I think we are totally on board with that. And as you guys might have seen earlier this year, we did our demonstration with the Lift Hexa there in Austin, which got a great round of applause from everyone. It's just a first step. But one thing I would like to know from the users and the communities out there is what else DoD could be doing to provide to you guys for as far as data. I know we've spoken about the auditory piece, which is always such a key thing with cities, but what else can someone like us in our position who is really hands-on with the aircraft provide to you guys to help you get these things flying out there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say from my perspective, what I've seen so far is keep doing the great things you're doing. I mean, being able to actually have flight testing, to get expertise from the government, DoD, NASA, FAA, other organizations, being able to have a place, a safe place to test aircraft, investments in technology, supporting technologies, and just kind of the vetting or the public endorsement by saying, hey, I got, an Agility Prime contract, or I was featured on Agility Prime, the Air Force or the Agility Prime community, sees this as having a valuable output is really helpful, especially to startup companies. There's a lot of great ideas out there. And a lot of money is coming into the industry. We're worldwide, probably $1 billion or more a year. I was on a conference call this morning a seminar with China, and Comac, the Chinese airline company, just unveiled a small eVTOL design. So this is as Agility Prime has made very clear, this is a race to certification and a race to capabilities around the world. We're an international organization, so we support all technologists, but there's absolutely benefits that the U.S. government can provide to help these eVTOL companies and these developers and the cities and everybody else, the whole community, to make this be the first and just really beneficial to Americans and society and cities.
Yeah, most definitely, Mike. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just to piggyback on what Mike was saying and maybe bring it from air to ground too. One of the things that we're talking a lot about in LA is things that maybe DoD could help with, and it's land use zoning building codes. And what I mean by DoD helping with that is understanding the infrastructure impacts of this, understanding how we're going to have to build out our electricity grid, understanding even how we're going to repurpose current helipads, heliports to be able to accommodate UAM, AAM, and then, even more than that, if we're going to have to build anything new, or if we're going to be citing this with other modes of transportation, how do we do that, or what should we be designing for? Because I think we in LA, are very forward-looking and future embracing, but that also means that we need to develop the processes and the frameworks and the codes and everything else that takes some time. And so getting a head start on that really helps us accelerate and to do that change in the best way possible.
Yeah, most definitely. I think you saw earlier today, we're putting in our first charging station there in Ohio at Wright Pat. So definitely a first step there, but we're also really looking at what it takes to station these on base, on Air Force bases with MILCON and hangars and all the operation and maintenance that goes into it. So I think there's a ton of data there that we can provide to the cities as they look to set up their infrastructure as well.
Terrific. We've got a couple questions that we'll get to from the audience, but one is really, what do you see as the biggest barrier of community acceptance? And I know, Mike, you talked about acoustics and noise, but just getting very specific there. And so that's the first part. And then the question from the audience is, what technologies are being looked at to address the noise for takeoff and landing areas in urban settings? So this is obviously the noise, the acoustic is a major thing. So how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, I'll start off on that. So basically, there's different noise sources that for instance, helicopters make. They got long blades. They spin relatively slowly. They generate a big impulsive vortex at the end of the blade. They've got turbine engines. They've got lots of gearboxes. They've got the tail rotor. All those things generate noise. And for most part, a multicopter something with a lot of blades, don't have those noise generation sources. I think everybody's heard what a drone sounds like. An eVTOL sounds more like that. And with multiple propellers, you can change the RPM, the speed, the rotational speed of each of the different propellers. And so you can broaden out the noise spectrum. So eVTOL aircraft are kind of inherent, well, they are inherently quieter. There's other things you can do with good design to make them quieter, or bad design will make them louder than they need to be. But there's also operational things like where you fly them, how you fly them, banking turns and things like that generate noise. So it's really just a step change in a lot of different ways from a helicopter, just like going from a flip phone to a smartphone. It's going to be very, very different. And I know that technologists are working on other ways, kind of more futuristic ways to make things quieter as well.
Terrific. Anyone else with the specific barriers that you guys are encountering?
Well, I just wanted to jump in on the noise conversation just a little bit. So I'm a recovering engineer. I have 2 aerospace engineering degrees, but I don't do engineering on a daily basis. So I'm really glad that there's all of these smart engineers, and none of them work with Mike's organization to make these things as quiet as possible. But I don't want to lose track of the fact that they could be completely silent. And if they aren't demonstrating real value to the communities in which they're operating, they're still going to be not wanted. So even silence is too loud if there's not a clear sense of public benefit associated with the technology. And we put up with things that are quite loud if we feel that there's a real benefit there. So while yes, they should be as quiet as practical, as quiet as we can make them, I think there's really, it's easy to kind of get distracted with that technical question and lose sight of the broader, like, why are we doing this and what's the ultimate, the goal here. So I think if we're successful on the benefit and successful on truly giving people a better way to travel in concert with the other transportation options that we have today, then I think there'll be a little bit more latitude on the noise. And if we're not successful with that, I don't think it's a problem that we can solve purely with technology.
And the question actually in the chat is, what is the end goal of the technology? So as you're thinking about, the public benefit, I mean, how do you guys all define that? How are you each thinking about for at the state or at the city level?
I'll just share that we've started talking with advocacy organizations, with congressional members, with local policymakers in LA about UAM. And the first 3 things they say are safety, noise, and rich people flying over poor people. And so that last piece around the concern about equity of access, about the affordability of the services, about where the infrastructure is actually placed and where the flights happen, especially because we do have places in LA that are louder or more flown over than other places, is really how we're thinking about public benefit and the acceptance of people of these new modes of transportation. And I think how that's playing out is that, we're embarking on a pretty comprehensive public engagement process to understand what does equity mean in the context of UAM, and for that matter, what does equity of UAM mean in the context of equity of transportation overall in LA, because some people might want to fly, overhead and above traffic. Other people might be okay being on the ground, but working in a UAM industry. So I think that focus on equity of access, affordability of services, placement of infrastructure is really how we're thinking about how do we make this something that shows benefit and has multiple use cases and multiple reasons for Angelenos to embrace it rather than to say, this is not for us.
Access across your citizenship, not just to a select few. Got it.
Exactly.
Got it. James.
I was going to say it's similar but different. I don't think we have the same social constructs. So our biggest constraints are probably noise, safety, and privacy. As I mentioned earlier, the more commercialization of you refer to it as ORBs, or urban mobility. We call it unmanned systems because we have a very small urban population. The more we could add value in terms of the commercial space, either for agricultural purposes or energy production purposes or monitoring energy pipelines or rail, again, it builds both industry buy-in as well as public buy-in, as residents across the state see the value in terms of public sector utilization for public safety purposes. But also they see that it makes their jobs a lot easier and their companies more profitable, thereby creating more trust in the process and system.
Got it. I'm being told we have a very minute or two left. So I just want to say, just gut feeling, just give me a year. Like when do you think we're gonna be flying around in these things?
2023.
2023? I'm writing these down. I'm gonna hold you to it. Okay. Anna?
Yeah, I don't think Mike's wrong. I think that'll be our first opportunity. I think it could be 2030 plus before it's ubiquitous, but I also am very prepared to be surprised there.
All right, Julia?
I'm going to say 2028 because it's when LA is hosting the Olympics.
Brand them, the whole thing, honestly. James?
2025.
All right. It's like football betting. All right, sounds good. Well, thank you all so much for being here, for your time. Sterling, what are you thinking? What's your guess?
I'm gonna get a ride in one next year. That's all I'm gonna say.
Equity of access. Where's my awesome. Thank you guys so much, and thanks for having me, and I appreciate you guys joining us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone from
Thank
the
you.
Agility Prime team. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Sure thing.